Assange, of course, wanted for questioning in Sweden over sexual assault claims. He denies any wrongdoing and says prosecutors have rejected his offer to be questioned in London. Well, his lawyers say if he's extradited, he could be sent to the United States to face separate charges related to the leaking of classified documents. We can speak now to Lawrence Lee. He's outside that hearing at Belmarsh Magistrates Court. So, Lawrence, on Monday, it did seem to be that things were going Assange's way. Do you think, though, the tide has now turned?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, really. His defence team are able to call witnesses in this, and the prosecution don't. So you'd assume the witnesses would actually help bolster Assange's case. In fact, the one witness they called this morning almost seemed to have the opposite effects. A lot of the talk in this extradition has been about the conduct and behaviour of the Swedish prosecutor called Marianne Ny, who's the woman who's trying to extradite Assange. And yesterday she was accused of being biased against men. And so a lot of the conversation in court has been about her motivations and whether she acted professionally or indeed lawfully in what she did. But some of the evidence that's come out today has amply demonstrated the enormous steps she seems to have taken to try to get Assange back to Sweden to answer these rape allegations. I counted no fewer than 10 occasions in a 3-week period, sort of September, October last year, when she tried through Assange's lawyer to arrange dates for him to come back and be interrogated, but his lawyer couldn't get hold of him. He was incommunicado. And so they couldn't find a date, and eventually, according to her, she got sufficiently frustrated that she first of all issued a domestic arrest warrant for him and then a European arrest warrant. Now, the interesting thing is, at that period of time, at the start of last October, was precisely when Assange himself was getting ready to issue the enormous dump of documents on the internet about the State Department. And so you do wonder, given that he was travelling from country to country, Germany, Britain, these sorts of places, whether he wasn't sort of wrapped up in all this stuff he was doing and thought that potentially that was more important than going back to Sweden to answer these rape claims, which he probably didn't think were very serious.
Yeah, interesting
but clearly
stuff.
That seems to have frustrated the prosecutor.
Sorry, Lawrence, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I mean, Assange's lawyer, you spoke about him a moment ago. I know he's been talking. What's he been saying about the case?
Well, briefly, he said, for a start, that they did try to arrange dates for him to go there, but they were deemed unsuitable by the prosecutor. He's also tried to suggest that some of these two women who made the rape claims may have had different motivations. He said he'd seen 100 text messages from these women, but that he wasn't allowed to write down, in which these women allegedly used words like revenge, making money out of Assange, contacts with the media to try to blacken his name, these sorts of things. So there is this undercurrent still going on that these two women may have ulterior motives and change their stories. We probably won't get a decision on today as to whether Assange will be extradited. That may come later. But everyone, I'd have to say, in the end, not really anybody is coming out of this very well at the moment.
Lawrence Lee reporting live there from that hearing in Belmarsh in London. Thanks, Lawrence. Now, police across Europe are continuing the hunt for the 6-year-old twin girls who've been missing for more than a week. Alessia and Livia were kidnapped by their father. Their uncle now says the family are very worried after receiving nearly $7,000 posted by the father before he committed suicide. His body was found in Italy after he failed to return the girls to their mother in Switzerland. And that is the very latest news from here in Europe. Let's go back to Doha now and rejoin Folly.
Thank you very much, Felicity. And we are going to go back to Egypt now, to Tahrir Square once again, where the demonstrations against the Mubarak regime continue on this Tuesday, day 15 of the demonstrations. Hopefully we'll be speaking to a protester in just a few minutes. But before we do that, I guess we're going to talk about another issue. As these Middle Eastern nations struggle to balance Islamic and democratic forces, some people are viewing Turkey as a role model. The country became secular about 70 years ago, but maintains a majority Muslim population. It's also experiencing rising incomes and a greater international presence. Anita McNaught reports.
When the euphoria of regime toppling wears off, then practical questions emerge. What's a new government going to look like? Across the Middle East, the answer increasingly is something like Turkey. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was the enlightened dictator all the strongmen of the Middle East have tried to emulate. None have pulled it off. 73 years after his death, he's still revered by many Turks. And it's the secular system he laid the groundwork for, balancing democracy, Islam, modernity and progress that's now being looked at with fresh eyes in the Middle East.
The Arab intelligentsia 10 years ago would poo-poo Turkey because, we have sold our soul to the West and we have lost our backbone under Kemalism and all this, are now rapidly revising their views about all this and coming around to asking questions like, well, Turkey is 99% Muslim, how come it can do this, you see? And we can't.
A study just released by Turkish think tank TESEV of public opinion in 7 Arab countries and Iran shows 2/3 of people surveyed think Turkey can be a role model for the Middle East.
Some of it is stemming from what we are doing, and in terms of economy, in terms of politics, and in terms of cultural engagement with the region.
Turkey's rising living standards have put neighbouring governments to shame. Average income in Turkey has tripled under the ruling AKP, according to IMF data. In Egypt, by comparison, average incomes have risen only $5 in 2 decades. And Turkey's new warm relations with old foes like Syria and joint ventures like this dam on the Turkey-Syria border inaugurated on Sunday enable Turkey to project soft power diplomatically, while Turkish Prime Minister Tayyip Erdogan's harder line with Israel has made him a hero on the Arab street. But the clincher for Turkey has been a marriage of Islam and democracy that, contrary to Western fears, so far has improved human rights. The TESEV study showed Turkey the most liked and respected country of the 8 surveyed. But many of Turkey's citizens would say their country still has a long way to go to live up to its top billing. Anita McNaught, Al Jazeera, Istanbul.
Well, Sabri Hafez, an Egyptian writer and editor, is still with us here in the studio. I guess, what we saw there in Anita's report is that age-old question, is Islam compatible with democracy? Do you think that Turkey can be a model for the Middle East and for Egypt in particular?
Easily, because like Turkey, Egypt had a very long liberal period from the more or less the First World War until the 1950s. Therefore there was an atmosphere of modernity, liberalism, secular politics, as well as progress. So, which was very similar to the period of Ataturk and the very strong emphasis on secularism. But when the army took over and we ended up gradually moving towards a much more dictatorial regime that had become very despotic and very tyrannical and very oppressive in the past 30 years, and the reaction to that we are witnessing now. So definitely there has been actually a very reformative, thoughtful and Islamic outlook onto.
But when you hear the
issues
Vice
of
President Omar
modernity
Suleiman, when you hear Omar Suleiman saying that Egypt is not ready for democracy, that a culture of democracy needs to be in place, what do you say to that?
I say this is part of that bogus discourse that they are using to justify tyranny. So Egypt, as if it is Egypt, is different from the rest of the world, and they do not deserve democracy. They have been using this almost hackneyed discourse of a special case, a special history, a special all of this, and this is absolute rubbish. What is really needed is a democratic process in which multiple discourses would flourish, including, of course, an Islamic one. They would be, because Egypt, even unlike Turkey, Egypt has 15 to 20% of its population are Christians, are Copts, unlike Turkey, which is nearly 90-something% are Muslims. And because of that, Egypt had to tread a completely different path, much more liberal, much more secular, with, of course, the Islamic thread is in every discourse, and at the same time, it's part of our culture, especially because Egypt, even more so, Egypt culture is an Arabic culture, which is the language of Islam.
Okay.
And therefore, the Turkish model is a very good model to follow.
All right, we'll leave it on that note then. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Sabri Hafez, for coming in and speaking to us. Thank you for being so patient. You've been here for a number of hours now. Thank you. We are going to take you back now to Tahrir Square in Cairo, hopefully in just a moment. Evening prayers underway in Tahrir Square on day 15 of these anti-government demonstrations. There you have it, the live pictures of Tahrir Square. Let's listen in just a bit and then we'll speak to a protester there. Okay, let us now speak to Sharif Borai. He's a publisher and pro-democracy protesters in Tahrir Square as we take in those live shots and evening prayers in Tahrir. Give us a sense of the mood there today. What's been happening throughout the day and how